All we need is one person to come on. Whoa, it's the Illusion reporting from somewhere on Spaceship Earth. I'm here with the mayor of Malibu, Mikke Pierson. We're going to do an interview and talk here, but we'll wait for one of you guys to come on and just give us an audio because we're bandits and we're outside. So first person in, if we got good audio, we'll get right into this. And I'll hit the play button for the podcast. And we go. Anyone?
You got 2 likes, it looks like.
More importantly, you just need a moderator now.
Need a human being to show up and.
Well, I got a bunch of moderators. Dig in the face diapers. Do you got how's the audio? Do we have good audio? We'll talk loud. We can do that.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There's like a lag. I think this whole thing's changed a lot over the last couple of years with the censorship and stuff. Okay, we got a thumbs up. All right.
Okay, let's rock and roll.
Whoa, this is the Illusion reporting from somewhere on Spaceship Earth. I'm here to do an interview with the mayor of Malibu, Mikke Pierson. And just for those of you who are in Malibu, this isn't going to be a gotcha interview. Maybe we'll do that at a different time. I'm not trying to catch them. We're here to talk about calming the troubled seas that we're living in and mellowing everybody out. And Mikke and I are different people. He's the mayor. I'm a constituent on the outside. I'm a vocal member of the community. We disagree on a lot of stuff and we agree on a lot of stuff. And we're trying to just mellow everybody out. Everybody seems to be very polarized. So we figured we wanted to talk to our community, to the country, to everybody out there as 2 people with different perspectives on reality and just show that we can communicate even though we disagree. And with that said, why don't you introduce yourself and promote yourself?
Okay, Mikke Pierson, as Hamish said, mayor of Malibu. Been in Malibu my entire life. Adopted, raised in Malibu from birth. So I feel very fortunate, always have, very blessed. And you know what? It's been such an interesting journey for me. And my journey is mostly about service and values and communication and leadership, which I can talk about for hours. And part of the journey leads right here because Hamish and I have had some, really highs and some sort of lows. But you know what? I give him all the credit for really being the guy to reach out and really, really work on communication, finding common ground and respect. And love that about this guy.
Yes, right on, Mikke. So we'll just get into it. I only ask one question in this format. What do you think about the aliens?
You know what? I the aliens in general, I mean, I'm a math guy. And if you do the math on what's going on in the world and what's going on in this universe, there's no way that we aren't aliens and there aren't aliens among us. That's my honest opinion. Also, all honesty, I've had experiences in my life which let me know minimally there's way more going on than you necessarily see on this podcast. I'm open to that. I'm not one of those people that's psychic and can see it maybe, but I'm one of those people that seems to attract those people that are. So I think there's a much bigger world than we live our 9 to 5 in. Absolutely.
All right. That's and so I asked that question just to know where it goes because the ones who get jammed up on that question, we know it's going to be a little bit tougher than those who are open.
I could speak for hours about this subject. I've had some very interesting experiences.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's go there for a minute.
Okay. So I was raised by, like I said, adopted here by parents they weren't even a-religious. They were more like scientists. There was no spirituality growing up for me. And I used to beg the neighbors to let me go to Sunday school with them just to see what it was about. And I don't know. I was very curious. And I absolutely thought we're carbon-based beings. And when you're dust, you're dust. And that's it. I did not believe there was anything else. I had an experience when I was 16 back east in a house. It was one of those old houses upstate New York that all the paintings like look at you.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Haunted mansion at
Follow the
Disneyland or
eyes,
so.
right?
Yeah, all the eyes. And I was with my girlfriend. We'd driven across country. My mom and sister were there in their own rooms. And that night, and we had these little tiny, tiny beds. And so my girlfriend and I were in separate beds. You couldn't get two people in the little old-fashioned beds. And I went down to get orange juice around midnight. And I remember being in this kitchen and no big deal. And I'm rinsing out my orange juice glass. And I hear a chair just drag across the kitchen floor behind me. And I turn around and it's not moving, but it's not where it was. And my mind's kind of going through all the options. I'm looking for a little string my buddies have done and dragged it, or I'm looking for anything. And I come up with no answers. So I haul ass back up to the bedroom and I don't say a word. And we're sitting in there, my girlfriend and I, and we start hearing these noises in the attic that are just, they started out as rats, then went to raccoons, and then went to what the hell is up there? Just super loud, moving things, heavy things, it sounded like. After that, so on that, and the next morning, my mom had said, who's taking a bath in the middle of the night? My sister had heard something. And I was like, what is going on? So I talked to the owner of the house, who saw her at this club the next day. She's probably 11 a.m. She was hammered. And I said, hey, your house is haunted. And she said, no, it's not. She goes, they're poltergeists, and they move the trunks in the attic. And I was like, and that was the beginning of a much longer journey.
Wow.
That led to knowing people that are very, very sensitive and very tuned in, and experiences communicating with, honestly, entities not in our physical plane. So, do I believe in aliens? I don't know if the aliens are within or without, but sure.
Okay. Yeah. No. I'm similar on that. There's something going on. There's more here than meets the eye, for sure.
100%.
I get into that, how limited our ability to see the electromagnetic spectrum is.
Right.
We can only see so much and hear so much, and what we're missing, the cats can see things and the bees see things differently. It seems like we're getting a very limited amount of information.
Couldn't agree more.
And well, that's, I think, ultimately kind of was the thing. We're here. We operate in very limited human interactions, and then we base all of this other stuff based upon not really knowing people, like even knowing right off the bat that you're adopted. Yep. I have a stepdaughter, right? So I that fascinates me more than probably any, like I hear that, I go, okay, because that I wonder, I raise a child that's mine, but not mine. And, the bond is real. Like it's beyond.
Well, being adopted, you learn one thing: that family are the people that love you and are around you.
Yeah.
I'm closer to, I met my natural mom twice before she died, and I have 3 half brothers.
Really?
And I am closer to one of my half brothers than anyone else. He's, and I did not know him growing up at all. Didn't even know he existed. So, to me, family, the definition of family is very broad, much broader than that.
Oh, yeah.
People that love and that you're with, that you share your life with.
Now, did you seek that out yourself, or that's an interesting journey.
I never, growing up, I always just felt very lucky to be adopted. I assumed that even at a young age, that for someone to give me up, and here I am in Malibu, that I was lucky, even as a little kid. When I was about 39, I had that classic moment. I was in my surf shop in Santa Monica. It was a crowded, I think, holiday season. People are everywhere. I'm standing there with a good customer who was a friend, and he goes, "Man, you got it made. You got this great family. You got this great business. You get to travel the world. You get all this great stuff." And I was sitting there thinking to myself, "Now, why the fuck am I so miserable?"
Yeah.
And it was, I'd gone on a journey that suddenly I hadn't really ever thought about what the destination was. And I had to make some big changes to sort of go, who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? And so, yeah.
Wow. I mean, so that's I just want to make sure we got good sound, everyone, right? Let's see.
I can slide forward a little bit if I need.
There we go. Whatever. We can't get into their world. That's its own weird universe. I'll tell you that. So no, it's this interesting thing again. So you've been on that journey of finding yourself.
Yeah, and it's the most important part of my life, that journey and what it means. And I have a million life philosophies. I've mentored hundreds and hundreds of young people because I hired about 800 of them. I've done their funerals. I've done their weddings. Nothing means more to me than that journey. It ever has. Nothing even close. And I'm very, very also fortunate that it sounds weird, but early in my business career, I knew how to sell stuff, but I didn't know anything about business. And I met this man whose name I don't remember, which is interesting, years and years ago, that taught me about not only business but culture and how to grow people, how to mentor, how to just bring people forward. And it really changed my vision in my life in a great way. I am very much a big fan of small business in America. It's the largest employer in America. It's the heartbeat of our cities and our towns. So I've led a life around that, but it also involves a life around values. And values to me come in the form of communication and leadership. And I think about them every day. I've had clients I work with on it. I think about it every day on the city council. I think about my North Star always. And it doesn't necessarily make it an easier path, but it makes it a path that makes sense to me.
Yeah, you've been in the city council for 2 years. You picked a whopper of a time to do 4 years in public service. That's for sure.
I that gets mentioned to me a lot. 2 days after I was elected was Woolsey Fire, straight into the pandemic, straight into other shenanigans going on now. But in a way, I think it's meant to be, and I'm good with it. There's probably something wrong with me, but I tend to now at this age and with my experience to gravitate towards the most difficult things. And I may succeed and I may fail, but I am not afraid at all to give it a go, to try and figure it out, to talk with you, with everybody and anybody, and try and figure out really big issues that are complex and important to the community and beyond.
I got you. You mentioned that the thing about small businesses is like, they're seem to be on the chopping block right now they're the sacrificial lamb on a level. Like,
I don't look at it that way. One of my many life philosophies is out of disaster comes opportunity. And right now, as human beings, we need to find the opportunity in what we're all going through, because this is a very, very tough time for most of us. And in ways sometimes we can't even appreciate right now. And it's the same with small business. This is a time where you have to reevaluate your goals and your mission and what you're really trying to accomplish and how you're going to do it. So yes, there are going to be, tragically, a lot of people that do go out of business, but this is that change to where people come and figure out new ways to connect and bring value to people in their community. And so there you go. That's the opportunity. And it's tough. Upheaval is tough, but that's how we bring forward so many things, including our human condition. We are creatures that are designed to communicate and gather. We are not designed to be solo, isolated unipods of any sort. So small business now has a huge place in the local community as a gathering place, as a place of bringing value to the people in the community. And the people that understand that and understand how to work with that are gonna do great things. But it's upheaval for sure.
Sure, but I mean, like there's a level of like your bad business falls apart. But we've had what are government mandates just rip people's businesses from their livelihoods, and they've been given no alternative. There seems to be like I don't know if I don't like on a collective energy level. I don't know if that's collectively doing anything but sinking us, because there's people right now in our city, if you take Los Angeles County as a whole, who have had their lives destroyed for for arbitrary reasons.
Yeah,
it looks very arbitrary from a
I
level.
agree. I get a little peek behind the door, and I think I'm on the phone with the LA County Health Director every week, and I've gotten the chance to talk to her in person a number of times. And what I realize is there's just not the infrastructure for nuance in that organization. So it comes across very blunt force, and that's super unfortunate and very, very difficult, which to me means, the only way my business is still going was from that PPP loan. And so government has a role to play there in keeping the whole thing going. And it's not easy. And, I think we've rolled the whole thing out, not the way I would have rolled it out at all, but that's,
but moving into this space. And I think that's part of what we're seeing on the ground level, like even on at the local city council level is, and I've been warning about it since this began, is with that sort of arbitrary, heavy-handed approach, people are losing faith in the system, because from the time on, I didn't really want to even delve into there, but we're talking small businesses, which I think is a safe subject, because we've seen a lot of people, we haven't seen a consistent narrative, if you will, coming out. It seems very so we're supposed to listen to, people are supposed to base their livelihoods on people that don't seem to really know what they're doing. And that to me is troubling, that we're all kind of rolling with these entities. I mean, you look at our own public health person, she's not a doctor. She's a family practitioner, ultimately, of psychology, right? She's not an actual medical expert.
Yeah, she's a scientist.
Yeah, but I went to school for environmental chemistry. I'm a scientist too. You get what I'm saying? There's
no doubt you're right, and I think I've had the couple of times the experience of being on the phone with them and trying to figure out what's going to go on. We hang up, and 2 hours later, entirely different health order comes out. So it is far from a perfect system. And as we know, and I think we can agree on, government is far from perfect.
It's a disaster from what I can tell.
Yeah, it's so many reasons. It's frustrating, it's difficult, it's illogical, on and on. But in this sense, I think you get a lot of, I view them as well-meaning people, and it has not gone at all near perfect or well. It's just, there's been moments that have been a disaster. We were not prepared for what we're going through in any way, sense, or form at all.
But that's where I kind of tend to disagree. Like on the local level, I'm a big believer in local politics up. I think most people disenfranchise themselves by looking at the top down.
Well, I agree with you.
When it's all ground level stuff. And so, but when I do look at the bigger picture, wasn't a surprise. You know what I mean? Is like
not to you and I, but apparently, like the fire, apparently to a lot of other people.
Well, it's a weird thing is when you look into the bigger governmental picture, they've all known what was coming down the pipes. You can look, they've been warning of this for years. I mean, there's an interesting show that was, the episodes were released at the end of 2019 called Counterpart.
Right.
And it's all about this.
And even the government had an office which got shut down under the current administration. That's all they focused on. Total disaster, in my opinion. And let me take a step further. Let's step back.
Sure.
In my opinion, we are the virus. We are absolutely the virus. The way we act and treat the planet, this is inevitable. There is no way this doesn't happen. And I'm a big mountain biker. I was up in the mountains today, and after the fire, everything was gone. Everything was burnt. I mean, there was nothing left, and it looked like nothing would regrow, like the trees were dead forever. A couple years later, 70+% of the trees have come back. There's plants everywhere. The only thing that's not regrowing is the houses that burned down. And I think nature's going, hey, listen, you know what? The way you were behaving, I got rid of the dinosaurs. You know, you're lining up to be next. See, we don't treat this planet right, and this is inevitable to me.
Well, okay, I'm on the same page with you about that. What I find is interesting is how are we sitting back and allowing, as if on that narrative, how are we going to allow Jeff Bezos to start launching spaceships into low Earth atmosphere every 6 weeks? That seems to be a total contradiction to any sort of global warming environmental policy. I believe the environment's in peril. But I don't believe it's what they're telling us, because you follow the money, and there's too many of these people hyping that buying beachfront property. Like, there's too many contradictions to, again, this is coming from people that haven't earned my trust in my lifetime. As someone who's been paying attention, I mean, you can look at the Iraq war was lies and fabrications. You can look at Iran-Contra affair, lies and fabrications. You can keep going back, and how old are you?
61.
61. Okay, so I'm 51. So we have a 10-year spread. So when I grew up, when I was a teenager, I lived under mutually assured destruction. My entire formative years were like, the Russians we're all going to die in some like nuclear winter, and I've really analyzed that a lot looking back in life, of how many moments in my life have been from one fear-based, trauma-based reality of we're all going to die. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. And they were convinced when I was a teenager that with nuclear winter, any minute, the atomic clock was always
right at midnight.
So you grew up in this thing with the duck and cover and the this and that, and then the wall fell, and then it was, the Y2K, and then 2112, and then it's this, and then that, and then you could look back at all sorts of stuff, and I think we wonder why, like, nothing. You go drive up the highway right now; those are all people that are the people that do not believe anybody in the federal government's looking out for them,
right?
And anybody on the state level is looking out for them. And why should? Okay, as the mayor of Malibu, why should anybody trust the government at this point? I think it's a valid question.
Yeah, it's a very valid question. I think, like you said at the beginning, we have such a polarized, you name the location, from here to the entire world, that it's really, really hard to have trust in government agencies right now. I totally get that 100%. I have nothing to say to that other than you hope that people who get elected come along and try and improve that situation. And I think, the elected officials I've met are all that way. And I know there's some maybe ego-driven ones that have their own other agenda, but the people that I've connected with in other cities, our city, wherever, there's a lot of people that really, really care. And then you get into a system that makes it really, really difficult. So it's challenging. I can't sugarcoat that it's not.
Well, no, and I think that's why I'm here, is like, and I think you gather this is like, I'm a believer. Like, I'm actually I so don't trust him that I've decided to go into it.
Right.
In that sense of, and you find out that underneath the thing, there's a lot of moving parts, and it's not what it appears to be, and this and that. But what I worry about, and I think why we're here, is there's a culture of armchair quarterbacks that are typing, that are in their forums, that don't actually participate. They hide in the thing. Like I'm one of those. There's nothing I'm going to do that I won't at least put out in a public forum, or at least come to you at City Hall. I may not do it in the most buttery way, let's say, but that's exactly where I'm coming from.
Being honest.
It's me being honest, but it's not me hiding behind some community forum. And I think that
I appreciate that.
There's a level of I don't know what it is my this is my take, is for $45 and 20 signatures, you can be a stakeholder in your community, in our community here. It's still $45, right?
I don't remember the cost, but sure.
But it's 45. Yeah. It was $45 and 20 signatures. I got a seat at the table. right? Because I showed up, and that's all I showed up. And I think we're experiencing something weird with this thing that's going on in City Hall right now about the supposed corruption and this and that. And I keep pointing it out is it's not corruption, it's just people who show up. like I've always said, it's if you didn't want development in Malibu, right?
Right.
Then there is a certain people that show up at every city council meeting, that show up and call you and grease the wheels, so to speak, by their presence. There's no envelopes moving around. It's they show up, it's their job. And I go, well, the people who don't want development, they don't have that same person down at City Hall hanging out, doing their thing. And I'm not going to name names, but like I appreciate that person on the other side of my perspective, because I see that they that's what they do, and we don't.
Me too. And there's actually, your point's really good. I mean, for me, I have no staff, and I have a job, so I'm the mayor. So the way that works for me is I have a team of people, and you're part of that team, like it or not.
Yeah.
That communicate with me and help me figure out what the hell we're doing and how we're going to get there. That never was more true than the pesticide ban, never more true than getting short-term rentals done. These things that have been lingering for years, I came along and I'm like, why are these things lingering? So it takes consciousness, it takes values, it takes goals. Once again, 5G, those people approached me. And I was like, okay, what is going on with 5G? What's going on with the wireless? I actually just openly did not know. I started talking to Nicole and Lonnie and this group of amazing local citizens. And in record pace, even though it was killing them how slow it was, we've gotten some change made. And to me, those are the highlights on being on city council, when you actually make positive change.
Sure.
When it actually, you struggle, you fail, you hit a brick wall, and then it starts to happen and you get people on board. So to me, it was kind of going full circle around when I talk about communication leadership. It comes to relationships. If you want to be an effective city council person, the local level, you darn well better be good at relationships, because without consensus, without people that understand you and you understand them, you don't have to agree. But if you can't do that, if you're a recluse or whatever you are that doesn't connect, there's no way to get anything done. It's not going to happen. The best idea will just die. So it's an interesting little world, the political world, and it's hard, it's frustrating, but the opportunity is there. And sometimes I must admit, my greatest victories, besides some of the more bigger items that we've gotten done, are just the one person I help.
Sure.
And that because you heard them and they reached out and then you took action and you solved their issue. That feels good. And I will take the one at a time victories as we work up to the bigger victories.
Well, and I think that's part of what one of my big things I promote here is get off the couch, show up, and wherever you are on the spectrum of it is the reason it's so out of control is because nobody's participating. And that's our form of government. Like, we are the government. And I think people have disenfranchised themselves so much that they don't realize that they can show up and access
or if they show up, they're so pissed off that there's no dialogue anymore. And I get it. I fully get it. But it's really, really hard to get on with it.
Yeah. No,
really hard.
Well, and that was the main reason we decided to do an interview, is the level of anger and animosity at the last city council meeting would if I was a first timer, I wouldn't want to participate.
Who would run for city
council? Well, I thought all of it. Like I told you, I thought I was more alarmed that the public was dogpiling in on this thing too, which is giving it fire. When I look, as much as get fiery about things too, like there's like, oh, wait a minute, like this is something else. This is an overflow of a bigger problem we see in our society. This disenfranchisement and this split going on. I mean, I was kind of shocked actually to see it on the.
Yeah, I didn't know that was coming either, but I often at city council, surprisingly, you don't have a clue what's coming.
No.
It sort of lands on you and you deal with it, which is fine.
Well, I was a little troubled leading up to the election too. Is the city council positions nonpartisan for a reason?
Right.
Like it, and people were making it very partisan. Some of the people were really in the community were driving, what's your partisan take on it all? And I don't think that serves anybody.
And I grew up very liberal home. I'm liberal. I'm a I'm a Democrat, and I'm a delegate to the Democratic Party in California for Henry Stern. I never ever think of that at city council. It never comes up in my mind. It's just not a factor, and it shouldn't be, because this is not about that.
Now we're trying to build skate parks, man.
We're trying to build skate parks.
That's our common ground. So is we have a lot of skaters on this thing. Is we're working together to get the skate park built, and that
God bless you on that, man.
Yeah, 10 years of battling, and I came in hot and been battling it, and that's the thing. And along the way, right? Like, and I try to tell people this along the way, I came in on skate parks, but I also got involved with everything else. I got to know people. You just show up, you get to by osmosis.
If you show up, people you learn a lot more. You just do, because government, like anything, like a nonprofit or anything, needs people to show up.
Well, that's what and again, this is where I'm seeing the big problem is the two-party system seems broken. It seems to be a mono party with two factions, and they're all it's all corporate. Like if you look at it like now, it's a corporate dual party.
Yeah, the money part is just mind-blowing, just horrifying.
Yeah, and I think, that's again where I think that we all as a people need to really kind of self-examine like what we're doing with this thing, because I play the ball, but I'm me. I'm I don't know if you know, but like I have T-shirts that say that I'm the illusion is president. Like I'm a firm believer that you are the president. I'm the president. We're all presidents if we choose to empower ourselves. And I think we've become very disenfranchised with this two-party polarized thing, which seems to be the same group.
Yeah, it just seems to be getting worse and worse. And it's really, to me, it's just tragic. It's heartbreaking. It's frustrating. It's all of that. It's scary too. It's scary.
Well, yeah, that's where I'm here is I see the 10,000 foot tidal wave over there. Like, I don't know.
Got a good look at it a couple of weeks ago. That's for sure. But it's you're not wrong. I think the underlying pressure that a lot of things have added to this with the pandemic is the big one. It's just so unknown and so unfair, and it's so not one thing on every one person. It's just added this level of stress and angst that I'm not blaming it, but it just seems like everything is just ratcheted up to this next level.
Well, I think it's exposed I'm a pessimistic optimist is what I would describe myself is I deal with the problem first because I'm not afraid of it. And I look at the thing is that there seems to be there's the underlying issues is sort of being disguised a little bit by the pandemic of we've been printing currency into infinity. Like how are we getting out of that? Like as a city, as a person in the city government, that the monetary situation heading our way is hugely catastrophic.
Right. And I feel like Malibu is actually very lucky in that sense, and it's still very challenging on the national level. I don't even understand how we ever get out of it. Malibu is lucky currently because we're not overly reliant on sales tax, etc.
Sure.
And that turned out, things financially are better than we thought they would be, because who knew in a pandemic everybody would come to Malibu. So,
well, I mean, we did that's 12 million visitors a year anyhow.
yeah, exactly. And then we've had our most crowded days ever.
This is one of the things I will say is the Malibu selfishness.
Yeah.
Like, so you have a county of 10 million people that have been forced to lock in their houses. Schools have been removed. Their businesses shut. There's nothing to do. It seems to me Malibu should be like, we should open the door and be like, I get why you're here. Like, the people complaining, I don't think that's fair.
I agree. I mean, and I think the city and the city council is all, well, I don't know, I can't say that. We generally look at it that way. When we talk about it, when I'm talking to city manager, right, we're trying, how do we just manage it? How do we get help to deal with it? Because, things like the trash and et cetera,
Sure.
And some of these properties people go to, there's no facilities, there's no bathrooms. It's like, that becomes what you spend all your time on.
Can I, this is something, you just mentioned something that's been one of my weird things I've always wondered about. And I never had a public official here to actually, what's with there not being any bathrooms on Big Doom and Little Doom? Where do people go to the bathroom? I've always wondered it, because
it's a fantastic question.
It seems to be a biohazard in the making, like constantly.
It's not just there at all. I mean,
but those are
familiar with those. There's worse areas, probably, in my opinion. But at the same time, that's where it comes back to relationships. Right now, we have huge issues trying to get the bathrooms to stay open at Zuma, and that's beaches and harbor. Sure. And then we have state parks, which one of my ex-managers now is a ranger, so I'm hoping I have a bigger end.
Well, let me explain that for people who don't know. There's the city of Malibu, due to its unique location on the planet, has 16 different state and federal jurisdictions at least, right?
Something like that.
So anything to get anything done is you have to deal with a lot of different government agencies, Caltrans, the Coastal Commission, the LA County. It's on and on and on. So to get anything done, so what we're talking about is the beaches here in Malibu, down at Zuma Beach, are controlled by LA County Beaches and Harbor. So we can't open them.
And the trails we don't control either. The highway we don't control. But with all that said, we don't give up. I mean, we're constantly working on it. And we've made some improvements. And then this year, the pandemic revealed just how much worse it could get and how much more we have to be ready.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's where I bump into it a little bit, and I made that at one of the city council things. And again, this sort of goes to my issue with the government. Is the one thing we do know for sure is a strengthened immune system greatly reduces your exposure to said virus. And where I go, I call BS on it all. Is we have supposed health officials. Not one of them are promoting a campaign of healthy living, which to me, it should be the fundamental thing is, and I think it ties into the riots. You have a community that is a nutritionally depleted community, where their brains aren't getting fed the proper nutrition, which is causing negative energy, which is this whole dynamic going on. And we live in a country where high fructose corn syrup is legal.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Where a guy like me is like, wait a minute, you can tell me to do all this, but you're not, I can't, put it this way, I can't mention it on this platform for fear of no one will ever get to watch this again. That's that crazy. If I start mentioning things from the alphabet that could possibly boost your immune system, this could be deleted immediately. Now, isn't that alarming from a perspective of
well, there's no doubt that this country, this world, coming out of the 1950s, went on this nutritional path that is a disaster, and it's all corporate run, corporate owned. And the amount of chemicals and poor nutrition, to me, it's criminal, absolutely criminal.
And that's where I get a little concerned, because I go, my little family, we're super healthy. We go out of our way to be healthy, but I don't get any tax credits for all the money I spend on vitamins and organic food, but I pay absorbent amounts on healthcare that is essentially useless.
Well, and it starts with, look what we've done to the soil. I could go on the soil.
The soil
forever.
is the key thing.
If you haven't seen Kiss the Ground, watch it. I think it's on Netflix. It is eye-opening as to what we've done to the soil and what we can do to improve it. And we're backtracking here, but that right there could change.
Well, no, we're not backtracking, because that's ultimately where I'm kind of going in a certain level is our common bond as human beings with life and trees and animals is one thing we all share, is the water molecule, right?
Yep.
Is the most fundamentally important thing, like, for life on this planet, that separates us from balls of dust and all of this stuff. And I go, we live in a society that bases this interest-bearing currency, bases petroleum products, bases corporations, versus the one thing that brings us all together is the water molecule, right? Which is the soil, because if you value the water molecule, you clean up the soil and the whole. That's where, like I'm saying, it's in a weird way, we're on the same page. We may differ on like this broader policy, but as two dudes trying to live on this ball,
100%.
We're getting snowballed. Like,
we're
getting crushed here because no one wants to talk about the real problem, like carbon tax credits and all this stuff. Like, what's that going to do for clean water? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, why is bringing forward a pesticide ban in Malibu so controversial and has to go to an outside agency? It seems like a no-brainer. I mean,
seems like one.
How is that even a thing? How are we allowed to have these rodenticides that kill the food chain? I don't even. I mean, you know what? I do know the answer.
Yeah, well, and again, for you guys who don't know, this is another thing we've worked together on, was getting the pesticides out of our community, which is killing all of our wildlife, because we live on the edge of essentially a national park that doesn't get the true justice it deserves.
No.
And that's these common ground things. Like, I worry about, like, that's where I worry about, like, this bigger picture of these policies just running away on us.
Right. And you see places like Malibu never gaining. We're losing local control. And people are telling us what we can and can't do. And I get it. If you're a legislator at a higher level, you think you have the solutions. But you know what? Look where we're sitting right now. Maybe people can't see. We're looking at a wall, but these beautiful mountains, these beautiful trees, and
that will burn down your house in a heartbeat. But it's the fire ecology. I mean, that's the.
I mean, we can talk fire all day too.
Well, no, I think that's another interesting thing when and again, to talk about the polarization of, like, the post, that, like, a lot of people came out very hard about the responsibility of our city manager in this thing. And I said, hey, wait a minute. Like, no, that's not fair, because anybody who participated in their local government would have gotten a look at all those burn maps and seen the fuel buildup on this ridge back here that have been building up for 50 years in some of these parts, and been like, wait, we got a real problem as a community, right? The community pushes the council person to push the city manager. So I go, wait a minute, like, the community all sat here and didn't pay.
Well, yeah, it's bigger than that too. You know, I mean, we all knew there was 40-year fuel load right up this canyon. This is where the fire came down that canyon into this neighborhood like a racehorse, like a jetliner. And yet we don't have policy that gave us anything to do but deal with the huge wall of flames coming down here.
Sure.
And it arrived and was left to us to deal with no firemen, because they can't handle a 15-mile fire front. How could they? That doesn't make any sense. We're not going to spend taxes for a 15-mile fire front of fire followers. So it's a really, to me, the ultimate answer is very, very simple. If we go right to the top, number one, we have to take better care of the earth, cool it off. And there's a lot of science to that, involving the soil, involving how we manage wildlife, how we manage outdoor spaces. And then we have to, if we're going to live here, we have to build houses that don't burn down that easily. And right now, I can tell you that most houses burn down decently
Well,
easy.
sure.
It's getting better, but if you're going to live here, guess what? Fire is going to come. It's always come, and it's going to come again. And we are very much an interesting society, our species, where, you know, we'll scream and shout for a year about fire safety, and then we scream and shout for more soccer fields, and we're just moving on and forgetting, and it doesn't matter anymore. And it takes people like, well, hopefully me and hopefully you, that no, we got to keep caring about
Well,
this.
that's what I think's interesting about it is like it's like almost the skirt. Like I'm a firm believer that you need to take responsibility for yourself, right? Which is a very what they would call a conservative point of view, which I call it's just common sense.
Common sense, right?
But like the fact that we don't as a community train to put out fires, that we don't come together, the fact that every street doesn't have a firebox, like
You see mine right down the street?
yeah, you know, I mean like a container full of gear, but I know you do. You have yours.
We have about 10 of them in this neighborhood.
Sure. Well, this is all burned down before, you know.
This is Fire Central. Yeah, and you're right. You'll be glad to know we are right here. I've been working on this with some help to having the fire department accept volunteer firefighters from the public with a minimum of training that can be part of what they call a fire follower program, and that should go live this year. So there is change. We have managed to change a very large agency. I went to Sacramento after the fire and talked with CAL FIRE, the overriding agency, who basically looked at me and said, yeah, good luck. We're not going to help you. You know,
well, the liability on that's huge. I mean, again, we live in a very litigious state, which
well, there's a bunch of us that'll sign that piece of paper and take that risk because, well, we're going to do it anyhow.
Well, this is the thing that I've been a little wary of is the overhyping of that stay-at-home fight the fire thing. I think is going to get people killed on the next. Yeah, we got lucky on that one.
When the fire came here, about 7 to 10 of us stayed in this neighborhood, 238 homes. I'd had fire gear in the garage for decades, but you know, my wife kept saying maybe we should get rid of it.
Nope.
And I'm like, nope. And we defended this neighborhood, but we knew what was going on, and a lot of people thought they were going to defend it and stayed as the fire came. And then when they saw it, they're like, this is madness, and left.
Yeah.
So it does take a level of training and understanding. And we saved a huge amount of homes. We lost 15, but we saved the vast majority of homes. But that wasn't every neighborhood. Most neighborhoods, like Malibu Park, where they lost a huge amount of homes, turns out they don't know each other. They all live behind gates with large hedges between their houses. They don't know each other.
Sure. Well, I've always said
we do here. And
the downfall, the kind of disenfranchised Malibu has been the gates.
Oh,
the gates.
I couldn't agree more.
You know, tear down the wall, right? But well, that's the interesting thing moving forward is I think, again, like you look at what went on at city council, right? With I think there's a certain process that should be empowered in the community and from the outside and the whole thing. It's where it just devolved into like what I see a lot of going on now is I'm willing to sacrifice the big picture to prove I'm right and prove you're wrong. And I see it's on the national level, and we're like there's this weird digging into like
well said
bad policy to prove someone else is wrong just because they're on the different like perspective of it. And like here we are talking like we're very like similar, though we're on two different kind of things about it. If you really got down to our voter roll call, you know, type of deal.
You know, and that's part of the human experience. You know, my degree in college is in psychology, and I got to tell you, a lot of what I learned at the time at UC Santa Cruz actually.
Oh, you're a slug?
I'm a slug. Actually, wasn't right, but I learned about the human condition, and that to me has been the biggest gift. I think that degree was fantastic. I've never practiced as a shrink or anything like that, but understanding that we're all human and we come from different perspectives and different experiences, and we're different people has been very, very valuable. And getting a group of people to work together and join together that don't agree to me, or don't see the world the same way, I should say, is how things happen. And maybe it involves compromise at times on some things, but it doesn't come from fighting to the death. It never will. And it's a challenge sometimes, but a challenge that needs to be met in our local city and in everyone's family even, and on a national and world level.
Well, I like to say the revolution begins at the dinner table. You know what I mean? How can you go outside and promote anything if your dinner table's in disharmony?
And my line, sometimes my humorous line is, I don't think I won the election in my own house.
I get that, dude. I lose that election quite often, man. No, it's a lot more human than I think we're all willing to give ourselves credit for.
Yeah, I agree. And there's all sorts of parts to it. One of my first philosophies in life I came up with is that stress is a choice.
Sure.
And I know exactly what made me really think about this and study it was commuting from Santa Monica. And I was getting stressed with the traffic coming home up this beautiful highway. And then one day it just hit me. I'm like, what are you stressed about? You're making this choice to do this drive.
Yep.
Get over it. And from then on, I used it as a time to sort of just relax or talk to friends on the phone or pull over and go for a beach walk
it's your time.
It's my time. And then I started thinking on a deeper level. And now, of course, I feel stressed sometimes, but I generally don't feel stressed because I choose not to. I sleep it well at night, even after a contentious city council meeting or a tough day at work, because I'm willing to put in the time to really process that and think about it and know that when you do your best, whether you succeed or fail or you're perfect or not, doesn't matter. It's just that you love yourself and you love the people around you and you move forward and you communicate as you go. If you do those little bits right there, and if we can all do that in some version, it'd be a very different world, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, you participate. You are actively participating in this reality we share. Like, you're not disempowered, and neither am I. Like, that's why we're here. But like, I again, is my big thing is to encourage people to get involved with the process. Like, once upon a time, you were working at. Maybe get into that for people. So once upon a time, you made a decision to get involved.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Like I said, I kind of touched on it already, but it sounds, the degree in psychology was a little part of it, allowed me to see another window that I hadn't seen and how people are. But it really was actually my business and understanding how to work with people. And we had a really amazing process. We had incredible culture. I'm still very close with so many of my employees. And I'm very close with some of the ones I fired.
Sure.
Because we had a culture of honesty and we did a lot of training. And a lot of those people still look back and talk about that experience. We were all there and we joined together and like one big, happy, dysfunctional family. And that's what we called our staff,
life,
family. And that gave me the space to sort of understand and process the human condition. Because if somebody comes to work in a surf shop, even in Santa Monica on the beach, there's a reason. And that reason, to me, generally because they're all young, means they're at risk. Just if no other reason than their age.
Sure.
That their decision making is still being formed. And we've had a lot of real amazing stories with people that really turned their lives around and saw a different world through that process. And it meant everything to me.
Well, we laid the seeds.
It put me on a big path, which included, as I drove there, a big path for me was this realization that I was failing with the homeless people I saw. And I did not know what to do. I'm driving to work, I'm driving back, and I'm like, I don't know how to deal with this. And it's driving me nuts. And then my parking lot it was open, but it had a cover. So people started sleeping often in the parking lot. And it led me on this journey of how I don't know how to teach them to fish. So I'm going to bring them a fish. So I'd wake them up every day. Hey, you want a coffee? Maybe grab you a muffin, something, and help them try and figure out where to go. And that led me to a further journey of being one of the places. I'm on the Santa Monica Homeless Action Committee, the Malibu solution. It led me on this long journey dealing with very complex issues with amazing people that are in a place where, you know, they potentially, they need someone to listen, they need someone to understand, they need help, they need a helping hand up. And there's every story in the world.
You got into something. I got to switch. Yeah. This only goes an hour on the podcast. Let me just switch that over so we don't lose anything, because we're into something I care about immensely.
Yeah. Well, we share that then.
All right, save. Oh, darn it. Wait a second. I got to just do. Hold on, everybody. Technical difficulties. We're on airplane mode, so my president doesn't call me in the middle of this. And all right, and retry. Yes, there we go. Bam. Not yet. Plus
technology.
All right, we are back in.
We are back.
Just 1 second, and boom. The homeless thing is very. Well, I'll just so you give, like, once upon a time in this very town, I lived in my car for quite some time.
So did I. I lived in an RV.
I lived in my little pickup truck.
Parked Jays.
And it was. I'm a recovered alcoholic, so it was. I was in my alcoholism, and that's where, like, that weird thing that came up on the city council with the registering people thing. I was like, that I don't like that, because I wouldn't have done it. And you weren't going to get me to do it. And I lived in the time of when it was a bust. This was 12 years ago, right? It wasn't friendly,
right?
But that's also what kept me on the straight and narrow as far as how I went about doing it.
Right.
The laws actually kept my scene clean, if you will. Like, what we got going on now is a free for all on a level. And
it is.
It's and really so I guess I speak from it, and I just want to throw you in that space. It's like I've been on the other side of alcoholism and shelterless living, and I was by choice. I didn't want to really live in a house. I was a surfer.
We share that. I lived in my RV and lived in a couple places in Malibu, and never realized I was homeless by today's standards.
Yeah.
But I was very, I felt it made my life simple. It made my life I'd gone through too much chaos in my personal life with failed relationships, and it just became very simple. And I could really focus on my health and being a healthy human. And so I really liked it. So, but dealing with it, with what we're seeing now when you're on city council, suddenly it turns into this whole other animal.
Well,
and finding a path forward, which I'm committed to and have been committed to. It's not easy, and there's a group of people that care a great deal, and we're marching forward on solutions, and that'll all be coming to city council very, very soon.
Well, it kind of ties it together with my main issue with our health people here. I don't view it as a homeless problem. I think there are people that need services that have fallen hard times, but I view it as a health epidemic.
Oh,
I live in recovery. I'm a person in recovery, but you look at it as it's a huge health issue on that, and then you have the mental health other side of this, and very few people who really need, like, actual homeless services are lumped into this thing. And I think one of the problems we're really facing is a nomenclature issue. Is we're using the wrong word to describe what is occurring in our cities. I don't view it as a homeless problem. I view it as a health issue.
I agree. I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I view that the solutions that government has brought forward so much are backwards. So you have to score like a 16 to 18 on the scale to get immediate services. Guess what? Anyone scoring a 16 to 18 on that scale is not going to take services. They're way beyond that. They don't care. If you're scoring an 11 and 12 and you're in homelessness, but you really, really want to get out of it, you won't be provided services right now. Mm-hmm. And that is just, and that's just one example of some of the dysfunction there. And tricky, very tricky. But at the same time, like I said, I gravitate towards trying to solve very difficult things. And we won't solve homelessness, but we need to improve it in our community. What we're doing now is not working.
Well, I guess that's kind of what I was sort of bringing up. Is like, how do we solve it if we're not even calling it what it is? Like,
Because I think I can tell you what I believe, but of course I'm one vote. I believe we need what's called an ASL, and that's an alternative sleeping location. It's a homeless shelter, but it's got to be much more than that. It has to have mental health services. It has to have services to help people transition into a home. It has to have all. When you start dealing on the granular level, one person at a time with homelessness, you discover every story is different. Do not put them in buckets. We need a system, which I think is where we're heading, that actually does that. It doesn't put people in buckets. It takes them for who they are and tries to work them through it. And of course, for the people that are homeless, why would they trust this system? It is not proven to be trustful. So gaining trust on something that works does not happen in a week or a month, or it could be a year. So it's really tricky.
Well, it's that weird thing is like, I mean, I can only look at my own experience with it. Is you're not getting me there.
Right.
I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm on drugs and alcohol. I don't want anything.
100%.
You get what I'm saying? But that's,
so what do you do as a city? That's where it gets interesting.
Well, that's what. Remember when my second election, the big thing that I was working on that nobody wanted to hear me about was getting the rehabs and the city to work together to provide a service based upon their overuse of our community. We live in the recovery Riviera, people, right? We have an unregulated beast that I knew if you pushed them too hard, they were going to win on that court case thing and get the free pass, which seemed a little short-sighted because I was like, bring them in. Part of their give to the community is we'll coordinate all this with the ambulances and the cops and the things, and we'll all work together. But part of the give is you got to volunteer beds for people
right
in the thing as you're part of your community involvement.
And I love that. I wasn't on city council then, but state law doesn't allow us that latitude, which is
well, sure, because that was again it was moving into the thing where it was getting pushed. I was like, they're gonna win, and now you've closed the door. When I know all these people. I've worked in the industry. I know who these people are, and I was like, I had a big meeting. I remember I put it together with Hoser. I had a big meeting and I invited one of the candidates to come who was on city council and didn't want to show up for the thing, but it was I had all the heads of all the rehabs and sober livings there to work out some sort of community-based thing that doesn't get into the system, because once you get there,
and a few of them are doing it, but it's not a good. There's no system.
No, well, they get to free pass the whole thing, and that brings me to my thing that I keep asking, like, about the California experience. Is we live in a state that is supposedly the 5th largest economy on the planet, which is a super Democrat majority across the board. It controls all the legislature, controls the governor for a long time now. Why is none of this? If this should be a shining example of Democratic policy on that level, but this didn't just start with the pandemic. I mean, this is
not at all.
So you have this situation where you have what is supposedly which is viewed as the solution, politically speaking, which is this Democratic thing. And I view it as, wait a minute, we live in the Democratic supermajority, but none of this is getting solved. It's getting worse from what I can tell.
You're not going to get an argument from me. And when it costs, at least $550,000 per room, what the hell?
That crazy thing going out by the freeway interchange?
I'm a big fan of towing in those little tiny houses and putting them on an acre and
Did
Give
you
them some
see
services? That to me makes perfect
But
sense.
what about Garcetti's buddy who just got popped for that whole thing with those things coming in at 120K for the
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, and I think it's those type of things that are causing a lot of people to this under roaring anger. Is like, wait a minute, even if we're participating, there seems to be this overshadowing thing.
Well, and there's this
graft.
bureaucracy there that is, it's certainly as a local elected official not working. So all the money for homelessness is basically goes to the large NGOs, United Way, etc. And the city of Malibu, we get bub cut at this point. I think we got a grant for the guy outreach worker Gabriel. We got a few little morsels. We have to somehow pony up, what looks like a fairly large amount of money for an issue, and which so be it. But you sure think there'd be a little more help that would be helpful, actually. And honestly, it's been hard to see.
Well, yeah, as a person who's like, that's what I do for fun and for free is to help people get sober. Like, to see them. Like, all right, so when this all pandemic happened, right? Like, one of the big things I was, again, where I go to our health commissioner, I won't even name her by name out of respect for you, brother. But our health commissioner, we live in the one solution that works for a lot of these people is the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous being open. Right. And that was just cut, right? So I even, from my own experience, I had a wet one. Literally dying for help. One of our community, drunk. I didn't have anywhere to go with this dude. I had to tell him to drink to save his life that night. Where it's like this dude's calling for help.
That's tragic.
It's all shut down. But we had an infrastructure set up. We live in a community where you can't get any of it open, even with the 10 thing. It's. And if this is a public health emergency, this drug and alcohol addiction problem, right? Why is that not being factored in? Because I view AA as an essential service. Like, it's not, this is more important than a liquor store or a pot shop. But the pot shops and liquor stores are open and our AAs are closed. Yeah. Like, people are dying. And that's coming from our health person, like, who's supposedly factoring all this in, and I don't see it. I've never heard it even mentioned. Yeah.
That's, I'm just going to feel really bummed and sad about that, because it's just not right.
Well, I think we should be not bummed and sad. I think we need to be slightly outraged, and that's why I pushed you a little bit, is like to ask that question, because you have the door to her on the phone. Like, what are we doing about?
What's funny about that door is, so at first, I in front of all these city people all over LA County, I figured out how to get him. I knew how to get, like, when she gave her a little talk, I figured out, push that code, boom, and get, I'd be first or second.
Bunch of people, yeah.
And we did some good things related to the beach closings. Like, we made some change. And then as this went on, I noticed the health officials talked longer and there was less time for questions. The reason was very clear. It's because the answer was they don't have an answer. They don't have, they're not going to find. You can make the best case for your exception, and they're like literally going, we have no bandwidth for that.
But I guess that's where, like, a dude like me sitting there going, wait a minute, you're jamming up all of our lives, and you don't have the bandwidth for like these health issues.
That's how it came across to me.
But no, I get that. But isn't that alarming that that we're giving these people carte blanche to shut it all down, and they didn't factor any of that in?
Well, I think too, part of the real reason, as I could see it, is that they were having trouble getting a grasp of what the hell was happening and what it meant. What is going to happen here? How bad is this? Is this the end of the human species or not? Not to be dramatic, but you could see them grappling to understand the severity of the situation.
But where I kind of, and this isn't like that sort of thing, but in 2018, right, you can pull up hospitals overflowing 2018, LA Times. We had the same thing going on in 2018, man. Nothing happened. You look at the swine flu, nothing. These people aren't, this is where I fry out a little bit about it as one human being. If I could do it, I got the bandwidth for it. I'll go run the show.
Well, individual bandwidth is way different than government bandwidth, which is part of the frustration of being in government and dealing with government. Is it's got these just set of rules and you can change it, but it's like
but isn't that part of the problem here that we have people that don't really seem to have the best. I'm trying to be super political on this out of respect for your position. No,
that's fine.
It's this thing where, like, haven't they proven themselves slightly unable to handle the situation, which maybe makes them have to go, you know what, we're not handling this right. We have a lot. Maybe we need to. Can we get some community input here? Do we have some people here who got some ideas, dude? Instead of holding on to the castle.
There's a mix there, but yeah, it's not as much of a mix as it probably should be.
Because I think that's where you're getting a lot of people that are big. I think you have two groups now that have turned to their solution being throwing bricks, if you will. You have the civil rights community, which rightfully should be, and then you have the other people that are like, hey, wait a minute, this isn't going right either.
Right.
They're both throwing bricks at the system, and it seems to me that there's the problem is that the system just no one was willing to admit they're wrong.
Well, and maybe this is that moment. Let's hope that this is that moment where the system changes, just like we were talking about retail. I mean, because if it doesn't, it'd be just ignorant to say, oh yeah, this is a one-off and it won't happen again. We won't have another big fire. We won't have another pandemic. Come on. That's not realistic. I don't think. How do we improve the system?
Well, that's right. I guess that's why I think we're doing part of what we're doing is not being afraid to talk because we see things differently.
Well, I think our ability to talk is key to everything.
Absolutely.
Us as a society, as a family, as a city, all of that. And that's something I think we can agree. It's been lost in parts, and that's really, really hurt us. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, this is my basic theory of human beings, all removed with all because I see this overreaching government thing as part of the problem of the planet. Is it at the end of the day, everyone just wants to go picnicking on Sunday with their families. Like, I don't think there's a bunch of people that want to throw bricks, throw rocks. But I think when you squeeze this thing, like remember before it all blew up, I was on the city council like, dude, it's coming.
Right.
I saw it the day before it blew up, and I was like, wow, like that's alarming. But I
agree with you on your Sunday theory. I mean, my Sunday morning is mountain biking, and we call it church. That's the name of the ride. It's church. We're up in nature. We're closer to God, and
getting in nature. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was another weird thing with them shutting down the nature, like right? It's weird. I got you. It is a little weird, right? This whole thing.
The amount of talks we had just when they shut down people surfing was like, what are you doing? Are you seriously? That is people's therapy. What are you doing? You can't do. It was an atom bomb in a surf town. It was ridiculous. And it was so unfair to everyone living in town. They needed that outlet too, and it was just a disaster. It clearly didn't work, and we changed it.
But the weird thing is, it came from that gal down at Scripps.
That was a total. I don't know if it did really entirely.
She was the big hyper of the she was the I forget her name, dude. I
don't remember it either.
But it's this weird thing. But again, right, like the science was this whole thing and this and that, and it's like where I'm alarmed, I guess, is like if I roll on the thing of like give it credibility for a second. I can't on a level. But it's like I don't think that these people have done anything to put. If there was a real one, like real, like problem on this planet or in this country, call it whatever you want. I think the number of lies and misinformation and missteps from the experts, you could tell them whatever, and everyone's going to be like,
what do we do?
Well, that's why I'm here. I'm trying to, I think
that issue's been raised on a lot of levels. What do we do when the experts either aren't believed or they're wrong? I mean, there's a lot of factors to that too. What do we do?
Well, there's like the callousness of, we can't mention them on this YouTube because we'll get
there's
censored.
All sorts of rules, huh?
Dude.
Seriously? I don't even know what those rules are.
You don't have no idea about the censorship going on this. This is what I'm saying is this thing is getting momentum where people don't even know what's going on with the loss of our ability to communicate first. Like, how do we communicate if this is all getting shut down? It's crazy. I'm more alarmed about us on different perspectives of reality, which is what there's 320 million of them in the United States alone. No, we can't communicate because it's very alarming to me. And so for example, you can't say his name, but we refer to him as Dr. Evil on this thing. So Dr. Evil, the head of the CDC, just cavalierly just comes out and is like, well, the herd immunity number, I've decided to change what it is because I didn't think people could stomach it. And it's like, I think on a certain level, people are tired of being talked down to by the bigger picture of like, no, just out with it, dude. Because the original lie, and people are still pissed about it, is 2 weeks to slow this, to bend the curve, right? We're almost a year later, dude, and it's
worse as it's been.
And it's not working. The numbers come out where the states, nothing seems to be working. It's like, but then you look at the one dude who's the guy, and he's lying to us.
And you look at other countries where they don't even have it anymore. My friend's in Perth right now. They had to quarantine for 2 weeks. You go out of that hotel when they let you out, and there's no mask and there's no virus. Interesting.
It's very, well, that's the thing. That's why I like on the thing. And again, this isn't me. It's asked that, when they switched to the PIC, right? Like the CDC switched the classification to PIC, which is pneumonia, influenza, and COVID, are all classified as the same thing now. The numbers, that's where I go. I'm not into.
We've talked about that.
I'm not into see, I'm not an anti guy. I want to make it clear. I don't believe that there's not something going on.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you going to get the vaccine?
No way, dude.
Why?
Because the same corporate, greedy, horrible people that I wouldn't trust to fix my car are the ones making it. And they've done nothing over the course of my lifetime to prove that they're on the right side of this whole thing. And I'm a science guy. I'm not an anti at all.
Right.
But I don't think that I don't think you just rush out some experimental new thing and just be like, and not look into it. It seems knee jerk. It seems like it's coming out of the propaganda machine. I don't trust any of these people because they've done nothing to earn my trust.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like, you look at like SB 277, which is the removes the exemptions for school, right?
Right.
Well, you look into Richard Pan, who wrote that bill. Well, who's Richard Pan? Richard Pan comes from is fully funded by the pharmaceutical industry. That's where he gets his campaign money from. He comes from UC Davis. He comes from that whole culture of pharmaceutical industry.
Doesn't feel very authentic to you?
No, not even slightly. And
I'm interviewing you now, by the way.
Okay. No, absolutely. And it's because it's valid like that. It's this thing where
it's a really interesting situation.
When I woke up to it all is when I was my child, when Al was in the womb. I never really thought about it one way or the other, right? And then all I wanted to do was ask questions, just to find out what is this all about. And the amount of pushback from the pro people and the level of vitriol about it made me ask more questions. And then I started to dig, and I follow the money, man. And I started to follow the money. And I was like, wait a minute. The money is the problem. The fact there's no liability, the fact there's no oversight of it, the fact that the person approving vaccines is Dr. Evil's wife seems a little weird to me. But like, you get into this.
So you think they got into bed together? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to, like, I'm not like that. Let's put it on this is if you remove that one specific issue, one of the big problems we have in government is one hand washing the other, interconnected directories, lobbyists. Like, I want to believe in the FDA.
Right.
I want to put the revolving door of lobbyists coming out and then going to corporations and getting in the government, coming back, and that whole thing. I go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. You look at the what's the other big agency up there that I want to believe in, dude, but it doesn't.
Don't know.
FDA, what's the more of the environmental one? But anyway, environmental protection, EPA. EPA used to came out hot, was all about super funds and all this thing. Now it's just run by the corporations that are polluting. And I go, Washington and this big apparatus all seems to be interconnected based upon corporate lobbyists. So why would that be any different? Why would my concern be met as a living human being if my clean water concerns aren't being met, my food concerns aren't being met? Like, those are easy. Like, my food supply seems relatively easy. So you're gonna talk about putting some stuff no one knows anything about in me? I don't know, dude. Based upon stuff that seems a little questionable as far as like how they're promoting it and what they're doing, and they haven't been upfront with us all along.
And a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, and I don't feel anyone's being honest. I feel like you're being more honest by going, I don't know. That's all I want to
I don't have a clue. I've never been a big shot guy. I've never gotten a flu shot till this year. And the doctor talked me into it by saying, well, you don't want to get COVID and the flu at the same time. I'm like, okay, I'll trust you. And so I took that shot, and I've been offered the vaccine as I'm a sheriff volunteer and they first responder type of thing. I said no at this point. If this really is, if this really is something that is impacting older people, let's just get through them first, and I'll think about it. I don't want my in-laws or my stepmom, not getting it. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and the rollout's been just a disaster.
Just total.
Doesn't matter what state, what government, whatever it is.
Total disaster.
Well, you even look at that. Like, you look at the new administration's going to roll out and violate and go against what the pharmaceutical companies are saying. You can't do it this way. Like, that whole, like, we're just going to they're supposed to do it 21 days after. They're like, just distribute it to everybody. Like, and it's like, wait a minute, you guys aren't even reading the label. Like, that's where I start to like be like, wait a minute, man. Like,
yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. I don't know that anything's decided, but that'll be critical.
Yeah, it just seems like, and this is on a more joking level about it, why aren't we using Amazon Prime?
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like, we have like, this is the weird thing is,
there's doctors in the neighborhood, they would just administer it.
I'll give you my trip on, like, just on the fun. We'll wrap it up on this. On more of so I got, me and my son are big Legoers, right? We do the
Why
Lego.
not? Lego's awesome.
Lego's the best. I get to relive my childhood. But I'm not a child, right? I'm a full-grown adult, and I analyze the Lego system, right? From the corporation to the secondary market to distribution to factory to product control. You look at Lego and the fact that you can build anything you can imagine with the same Lego bricks, which you could say is DNA, the DNA of Lego, right? You can build a spaceship, a dragon, an abstract piece of art, whatever you want. The Lego universe is crazy, right? Well, the Lego Corporation is pretty flawless. Factories all over the thing, everything links together since the first Lego brick. Well, it's linked to the new Lego brick, right?
Right.
the quality control is immeasurably perfect. We're into like hundreds of sets now. Maybe not that many, maybe 100 sets, and we get the big ones and the small ones. I've never had one of those things missing a piece.
Yeah,
but
flawless.
The customer service is flawless, and this is a corporation all over the planet that goes beyond any border. They're in China, they're in Peru, they're everywhere on the planet, man, and they're building these things. And I go, wait, it's this thing where I look at that and I go, man, how can we have this on the same planet as this mess? And these are the people
Maybe
that
should run for city council. I'd vote for him.
So I kind of, that's where I get a little bit like, am I a denier? No. Am I an anti? No. But am I a systems guy? Yeah. And I look at these.
Well, you do something to this importance. You question things. You don't just take them at face value.
No. And the more questions I ask is and where the red flags go off on me is where I go, no, dude, like, I'm supposed to answer questions, I think, as a human being, like with my health and all these things is on the thing is I used to live by the whole Totino's and Oreo cookie philosophy, which is this: the more preservatives, if you're going to commit, you commit all the way. So I was a no healthy food.
Wow.
If you had,
I gotcha.
It was no. I'm a full preservatives all the way. I'm going to sustain my life. I'm going to preserve myself like a Twinkie. It was my basic theory. But now I'm on the other thing. Like it's this thing because you know that like I know that if I eat a piece of chocolate cake right now, I suffer the risk of having a depressive episode. I suffer from depression, right? Sugar's very bad for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very bad for everybody. I think on a overabundance, it's in everything, right? And so I have trouble trusting a system that I go high fructose corn syrup. If that's still like being put out by the FDA and the Environmental Protection Agency and the health and the whole thing, I go, how safe are these cats?
And that's why I have never minded when you showed up at city council in person or on Zoom and let us know what you think.
I miss being in person.
Me too. I'm a hugger.
Well, I think that's part of the animosity going on too. Is people
brutal.
People don't do that.
It's just drive me nuts.
Yeah, that's the keyboard warrior stuff. But
yeah.
But on that note, Mike, I thank you for your time. Maybe we'll do another one that's more focused on the hardball city council stuff.
Okay.
But I think just to wind this up is, look, the government and the system we live in is based upon participation of the people, by the people, for the people. Mikey's just a dude. I'm just a dude. He showed up. Women, men, whatever your shape, model, make it is all you have to do is go down to City Hall. You'll meet a very nice person down at City Hall who will be more than happy to show you everything you need to do to get involved. Right?
Absolutely.
We have awesome people down there, and they didn't say, no, you can't show up. They were like, here's the forms and this is what you do. And let me make sure that it's all filled out right. And I think that if I can say anything is, at the end of the day, he's the mayor of Malibu, a city councilman, but he's a human being. I'm a human being. And we got to get back to the human being thing. It's human beings running these machines. Yeah, and even these people and these things, they're all human beings, man. And I think we're losing track of that, people. So, Mikey, I would shake your hand and give you a hug. We'll do that.
Hey, Hamish, I really appreciate it.
So, thank you.
It's been great.
Yes, awesome. And with that said, we are out. All right.
Nice. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's fun, man.